Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today we're looking at my Serissa tree, the one that's styled as a African acacia tree. As you can see, it's in need of a pruning. So we're going to talk about pruning these trees and a little more about the care of these trees, because I've never really talked too much about how to take care of them. These trees, the Serissas, kind of get a bad rap with a lot of people. They say, oh, I can't grow them, they just keep dying on me. So we're going to talk about how to care for them and how to keep your Serissa tree growing really vigorously. So the first thing we're going to talk about is how often to prune your tree. This one needs pruning. I've left it about as long as you'd ever want to leave it before you start pruning it. You can see in here it's starting to develop flower buds, which would be great if you wanted to display flowers, but at this point in time we don't. We just want to keep the tree pruned and continue shaping the canopy. So the first step I'm going to do with this tree is I'm going to do a profile pruning to the top. So the tree's grown for quite a while now, probably the last 2 months of winter without any pruning. And this is about as long as I'd ever want it to grow before I prune it back. You want it to grow somewhat to get some vigor in the tree, and then you want to prune it back. But you don't want it to grow too strongly, or you're going to start getting some coarse branches in here, and it's going to start to shade out your fine inner buds that you want to keep and develop those. So you need to let it grow somewhat, but then you have to prune it back. So because I'm training this tree to look like an African acacia tree, we want that flat top look, slightly rounded but very flat on the top. So the easiest way to prune it is to go in with the scissors, and we can just start with our coarser branches like so. And I'm trying to prune in between leaf nodes. There's that smell of the Serissa. Doesn't smell very nice. So I'm going to continue just pruning back. And the next question is, how far back do we go? So we want to go back to almost the height we had it before. So we're going to prune off almost all the new growth, but not quite all of it. And I'm cutting through a few leaves as I do this. There goes some of our flower buds. And if you remember, our goal with this tree was to get these zigzaggy branches in the upper canopy to resemble the full-size acacia. You can see a few of the old leaves in here have turned yellow, but that's normal. They just fall off. Leaves don't stay green forever. So now that I have the upper canopy pruned shorter, I want to look at the top view now, and we want the top view of the canopy to be an oval. So longer left and right, and shorter front and back. So it's going to be a rounded canopy, and it's going to be in an oval shape. So we're going to go up top now and look at that. So we're up top now, and we're going to go in and we're going to prune to our rounded profile. So it's almost going to be the shape of the pot, but maybe even a little more elongated. We're just continuing our oval shaped profile. A little more off this side. Okay, that's pretty good for now. Let me just tilt it a bit more so you can see it directly from above. There. Okay, let's go back to the front. Okay, so we're back to our front view. We're still a little high. We've pruned the profile to the oval. We're still a little high. We want to bring it back as far as we can into, so we still have some foliage. We don't want the tree getting too high. We want it to get it wider instead. So we're going to keep pruning. And you can prune back into old wood on serissas. They back bud quite easily, providing you have some vigor in the tree. Now that goes for any tree. You don't prune back if it's not vigorous. So that's why we let it grow for a period of time and then cut back. And on this tree, because it's styled like a flat top acacia tree, I don't have to worry about branch structure so much as far as, everything fanning out and flowing nicely, because the top of an acacia tree is very chaotic. All the branches zigzag, and it just sort of fills in the canopy, which is exactly what we're doing. So I'm just going to rotate it around so I can see the front. And continue giving it a haircut. So I'm pruning it to a fairly flat on the top, but not absolutely flat. We want a slightly rounded shape to it. And we're taking it back quite far. And I'm checking it from the side view to make sure we have that same rounded profile on the top. And this is, very similar to what I did on the ficus trees. Except the ficus trees you want to worry more about branch structure. Not so much in this one. So what we don't want is long straight shoots. That's why we're pruning it back, so we get our zigzag movement to the branches. Now we've pruned quite far back. Just going to pull some of these leaves up so we can get some of these yellow leaves out of here. They've done their job. They're just old leaves that have gotten old and replaced with new ones, so we'll get those. And by removing these old leaves, we get a little more light into the branches for our new growth to start happening. Next, we're going to talk about the care of the tree. So, why can some people grow serissas and other people can't? And I think it's mainly to do with humidity. I grow my tree in the plant room all winter, which has about, 40 other trees in there. They're all drawing water out of the pots and putting it into the air, so it's always fairly humid in the plant room, especially on warm days. It's a nice humid warmth in there. If you let these trees dry out too much, you'll probably kill the tree, or at least lose all the foliage until you water it again. So generally I would say you should keep the soil fairly moist, not soaking wet all the time or the tree will die from root rot, but on the moist side. And a safe thing you can do is, water it thoroughly, maybe once a week, and then the rest of the time mist it. You want to mist the tree, water thoroughly once a week, and then mist it, maybe once a day or every 2 days. to keep the soil moist on top, to replace all that water that evaporates into the air. So it kind of keeps your soil level at a consistent, humid but not soaking wet moisture level. The tree goes outside in the summer onto a bench in the full sun and does really well in the full sun. Again, when you transition the tree from inside to outside, you have to be really careful, because when you put it out in spring, the sun's at its strongest, at least here, and it'll burn every leaf off the tree and kill the tree. So when you first put it out from indoors to outdoors, make sure you put it in the shade. Gradually expose it to sunlight over a period of almost a month. You don't want to just put it in the sun right away. Keep it in the shade at first, and then on cloudy days, bring it out onto the bench, and then put it back the next day when it's sunny again. So gradually transition it to full sun. And keep watering. These low pots, because they don't drain very well, because they're only, this high, you don't get that hydraulic action of the water weight pulling the air through the soil. They grow well in these shallow pots because they stay quite moist. Temperatures, they can go quite low in the winter. My plant room, it goes quite cool on some days in the winter, to maybe, not a whole lot above freezing some days. So they can take the cold. They can't take freezing at all. So don't leave it outside if there's going to be frost or anything. Definitely, it's a tropical tree. Bring it inside. But yeah, if you keep the soil kind of moist, don't let it dry out. If you do let it dry out, you'll notice in a couple of days that your leaves will all start turning yellow and start falling off. And the same if you give it too much moisture. If it's soaking wet all the time, your leaves will start turning yellow on the ends and they'll start falling off. So consistency is the key with these. Consistent in light and humidity levels and your watering schedule for the soil. If you neglect any one of those three areas, you're going to have problems. The last thing I wanted to talk about on the care of Serissa trees is fertilizing. As you saw before, I haven't fertilized this tree all winter, and I had some pretty long shoots, and the longer you let them grow, the longer the internode is, the space between leaves. So you get these long stems with leaves quite spaced apart. So if you over fertilize these trees, you're going to get that. You're going to get very leggy, long growth. It'll be very vigorous, but it's not what you want when you're in sort of a refinement stage of the tree. If you're just building your thick trunks in that, fertilize it, let all the branches grow. It'll thicken up the tree. It'll be healthy. But as you get towards refining the branch structure and developing fine twigs and branches, you don't want to over fertilize because you're going to get that very long, rapid growth. So I would fertilize only when it needs to. And I would say probably diluted fertilizer once every 2 weeks in the summer is the most I would give it. I wouldn't give it a regular fertilizing every week, or you're going to get rampant growth that's almost unusable. So that's it for today. We've got our tree pruned up. We talked about the styling of the tree a little bit. We talked about the care of serissas. The next thing we'll do is we'll be repotting this, probably not this year, but maybe the next spring. If you remember last summer, we pruned the roots back quite severely, and the tree didn't really skip a beat. It's done really well. So that they can take some pretty severe root pruning. So we're going to let the pot fill up with roots before we transplant it. There's lots of room in this pot for them to grow. And we're going to rotate it slightly to get the front view like I'm showing you. And we'll get the moss pruned up when it starts growing in thickly. We'll get it pruned back to like my little tufts of grass like in the previous video. So you can see that our canopy is getting quite dense now. When we first pruned it back last year, we had a lot of holes in the canopy, and it's getting quite dense now. And that's what we want to continue doing, is just, you know, refining the canopy, getting it denser, getting our foliage layer flatter, and building out our width slowly. And again, we pruned it to the oval profile. We don't want one branch jutting out of our profile. We want to grow it evenly to that oval profile, not branches here and there sticking out. So that's it, Nigel Saunders. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.